weeks now. And the good thing about introduction is that you can easily hide yourself behind your introduction because it tells you about yourself, but you can still hide yourself. But I have to shoulder that responsibility. I just was working with the KFI recently. That was my most recent work. I was with them for about 4 years. I was on the campus teaching in the school and in the only college that the foundation has, where I was uh, actually running a department of Krishnamurti studies and interacting with mostly BA and MA girls, running some courses also. That was my most recent work. Other than that, I have worked as journalist. I have run a publishing house. I had my own business, which is now closed because of the lockdown. And I'm a freelance writer. I write for newspapers and magazines, and
और
I
उसमें
also
से ले
do translation. I have we have today decided to have a panel of 4 participants, uh, in which the panel will include Sanjiv Sharma, who has also, as you all know, been attending this for several weeks now. He lives in Bangalore. He's a freelance writer. He has written one book about which you all know. He's also planning to write another book. He works on now, currently, he's working on food and nutrition a lot. So that's his passion. Uh, Dr. Harshad Parekh has been closely associated with the teachings, has met Krishnamurti in the past. Harshad Parekh ji has taught in the Rishi Valley School, and he's a traveler. He visits all centers in the foundation in Rajghat. I remember he used to visit every year in December. I don't know what's going to happen now. And he has also attended the Indore session several times. And Dr. Atul Bhatnagar, maybe many of you do not know him. He's a professor, he's a dentist by training and a teacher by vocation. And he heard Krishna Ji at Vasant Vihar, and there's a there's a Theosophical Society campus in Adyar, and he's from Varanasi. He teaches in the BHU, Banaras Hindu University, and he is interested in Krishnaji's insights related to image making process, hurt, and education. And these have helped him in his work, in his life, both as a householder and as a professional. So I think I have introduced all of us, and I have very cleverly hidden the real self, been able to conceal the real identities. The biodata contains everything except the person about whom the biodata is written. So the topic that we are supposed to discuss today is why don't I judge? Why I said I tried to create a panel. We have designed the program in such a way. Yeah, I'll just first briefly introduce the theme. Then we may watch a very short video by Krishnaji on the same topic. Why don't we change? And then each speaker, there are 4 panelists that constitute the panel. They will speak very briefly on the topic, and then we will request every participant to uh, share their observations, ask their questions, uh, and that's how we have planned today's session. So the topic is why don't we change? I actually changed it to why don't I change? Because when we use the word we, it seems that we are not prepared in our own life to face the challenge. It makes a lot of difference for me, at least, when I change the pronoun from we to I. Then it becomes my own challenge, and I don't want to generalize about. I don't want to say human beings as human beings we don't change. I am just changing the topic to why don't I change? Now, you see, at one level, uh, we all change. We all change. Physically, we change. We change. The cells of the body die. They regenerate, degenerate. We, we are born, we grow, we go through the process of decay and destruction. All living beings go through these stages in life. So there is a change in all that. I'm not the same person that I was 30 years back. Maybe I've changed beyond recognition for many who have not met me for decades. My profession has changed, my work has changed, the way I speak to people has changed. Several things have changed. There are also changes because of a lot of economic factors, social reasons. Uh, People leave their cities, their family for economic reasons. Now it's very common, youngsters in their 20s, they leave their parents and go settle somewhere else. They form their neo-local families, joint families become nuclear families become sub-nuclear families. And with all these changes, a lot of changes also happen in the psychological aspects of life. You learn new languages, you forget old languages. Like my mother tongue is Gujarati, but I hesitate to speak Gujarati because I have been living in this part of the country for several years, and my wife doesn't speak Gujarati because she's not from Gujarat. And so my children have learned a little bit of Gujarati. So when I have to speak Gujarati, when I talk to my sisters, I speak in Gujarati just to find out whether I have really forgotten the language completely. So there are changes. There are changes at one level. We call them changes. We say that he has changed a lot. But when Krishnaji says that we don't change, I think he says something, he means something very different, it seems. Now, what is it that makes Krishnamurti say all his life that people have not changed, that you have not changed? Which seems that he has changed, which seems true. He has also claimed in several of his writings, in his talks, that he has undergone transformation. But he also thinks that people have not changed. Even people who were very close to him, were close associates for 50, 60 years before he passed away, he recorded a statement in which he said that the people around me who were very close to me, none of them has the foggiest idea of what went on with this body and the mind. So Krishnaji, what was that change that he was talking about? Nobody, according to him, had experience in his lifetime, including people who were very close to him. It is said that in Buddha's time, about 63 people underwent total transformation, but I don't know whether it is true or not. So I don't know whether it has something to do with the proximity to a liberated person, because in the Buddhist texts it also said that the person who was very close to the Buddha, Ananda, who was his cousin, he did not experience the transformation that Buddha was talking about. Now, there are a few things that we need to understand because I think we don't know what exactly is the kind of change that we talk about. But he tells us very clearly what is not change, what according to him is not change. He says that there is a possibility of transformation. What that transformation exactly is, what happens to a person who is transformed, who has become liberated, he doesn't describe very often, but he does tell us what is not changed. So he kind of urges us to have a negative approach to this question of change. Find out what is not change. So what he says is, first of all, it seems to me that Krishnaji talks about change in a very absolute sense. So it kind of says that either one has changed or one has not changed at all. The I doesn't change. So the question why I don't change, a simple answer to this question in the light of Krishna Ji's teachings will be that I cannot change. It simply doesn't change. And our efforts to change the I, it only shows our ignorance about the uh, about the structure of that I, about that the nature of I, and that's why we try to change it. So he says that take the example of an emotion that I have. I call it a toxic emotion that spoils my relationship with people, and I want to change it. Take the example of, say, anger, which is a very common emotion. I doubt if there's anybody who has not experienced anger. So, what do we do with anger? We say that we often we may justify anger, saying that it's mm, the right thing to have. Why shouldn't I feel angry? People are not behaving nicely with me. The system is bad. The whole society is corrupt, and so on and so forth. And therefore, anger in me is quite justifiable. Now, when I justify something, certainly I can't change it. Or I say that I'm a very bad person. I'm prone to given to anger, and I feel angry at the slightest provocation, and therefore I'm a very bad person, and I condemn anger. Krishna Ji says that even condemnation is not change. I may feel very good. There are saints who have condemned themselves. Tulsi Das used to condemn. Gandhiji used to say that I am that kind of a person. That all kinds of things he used to confess publicly, even in his experiments with truth. He says everything. He criticizes himself so much that there's not much left for his opponents, his critics to do. He has done all the work of his own opponents himself. But does it lead to change? That's the question that perhaps Krishnaji would ask. Does it lead to change? Krishnaji is not a reformer. He is not a person who is teaching us how to manage one's psychological state, how to manage these emotions. He's saying that we are talking about a completely different life. He says that he's talking about the cessation of the self, not a slight modification in the self. Right? Therefore, when Gandhiji started in the 1930s, temple entry movement, in which he asked the so-called low caste people to enter Hindu temples, they were stopped, prohibited from doing it. Somebody asked Krishnji, "Sir, what do you think about this movement?" He says it hardly matters who enters because gods don't live in temples. So his whole approach was that of a revolutionary, not of a person who wants to change one thing into another. He perhaps meant that all these changes that we are familiar with, that we want to bring about, they are confined to the field of the known. As long as one knows what one wants to change to, what one wants to change into, one doesn't change. If I am a violent person and I say that I want to become non-violent, and I already have an idea about what non-violence is going to be like, then this change is no change at all. It is like moving the pieces of furniture in a room, putting them from one place and removing them from one place and putting them in another. He says it's like juggling with the contents of the known only. There is no radical transformation in that. Uh, he also discourages substitution. Many motivational teachers and writers have written about it. You have some emotions and you try to divert your mind. You start focusing on something else. I mean, what they recommend is that we should substitute a negative emotion with a so-called positive emotion. For Krishnaji, this is also not a change. There are other psychological techniques such as sublimation, where you are recommended to sublimate your so-called bad emotion into something which is noble. For Krishnaji, a nobler self is also a self. For him, a higher self is also a self. So there are religious traditions that talk about the lower self and the higher self. For Krishnaji, higher self is just a projection of the lower self. The lower self imagines a state of higher self and tries to pursue it as an ideal. Now, for Krishnaji, all this is a game that the mind is playing on itself. It doesn't take us anywhere. Okay. Uh, I need to be brief. One more thing that Krishnaji says, he says that knowledge doesn't change you. Now, regardless of how much knowledge I have about my psychological makeup, I may be a psychologist or an expert in all this. It doesn't change me. You may know a lot about me. As I said in the beginning, I can give you all the information about what I have been doing, but that still doesn't tell you anything about the actual me. So knowledge about anger doesn't free. For him, perhaps transformation was freedom. For him, perhaps transformation is not in changing the structure of the I into some other form. For him, it meant the ending of the me. Not that me becomes non-me, me becomes less egoistic, it becomes less angry. He was not interested. So therefore, I said at the outset that his approach was very radical, very he was very dismissive about all other so-called changes. He thought they were all very superficial and only happened in the periphery of life. Now, an interesting question comes to my mind. We need to touch upon it a little. Krishnaji talks a lot about the individual change, which is very different from the people who believe that it's going to take a lot of time. History doesn't show us, doesn't prove statistically, you can't prove that a change in one individual has changed the society, because his main concern was to bring about a transformation in the social order. He talked about the new world order, and he said that it began with the transformation in the psyche of the individual. One has to start with oneself. Now, people often ask, I also wonder, how can an individual change? Maybe Krishnamurti as an individual influenced thousands of people using uh, 20 million words, I think 75 books addressing people all over the globe, talking about modern issues that they face in their own language. He did all that. But how many people actually underwent the kind of change that he talked about? The Buddha was another individual. Gandhi was an individual. How many people you have made Gandhians? People can become Krishnamurtiite. People can become Buddhists. But becoming a Buddhist or becoming a philosopher or a teacher, professor of Buddhism doesn't mean that one has actually got the fragrance of the Buddha consciousness. So knowledge doesn't bring about change. But why does he say that? He says in 1929 that if there were only 5 people with their faces turned towards eternity, it would be enough. He said at the time when he was dissolving the order of the star in the east that his purpose was to set man absolutely and unconditionally free. That was his declared objective purpose in life. And so he said, I just wanted it just, and he said that he was not searching for popularity. People might think that he was doing something great, something radical by disbanding a huge organization, but he said, no, no, I'm not after seeking after popularity. It's not that I want to create some sensation in the spiritual world. All I'm saying that if there were only 5 people, to quote his own words, with their faces turned towards eternity, unquote, he said that would be enough. Now, what does he mean? I don't know. Psychologists have studied. There has been a study called the 100th monkey effect, when some monkeys in a Japanese island were studied, and it was found that when a female monkey started washing a sweet potato in the water, gradually within a few years, all the other monkeys in the same island started doing the same thing. Not only that, in another island also, monkeys learn the same technique. So there are people who have said that if there's a change in one individual, in a few individuals, it may bring about a change in all the members of the species. Krishnamurti had dialogues with a psychologist named Rupert Sheldrake, and he was a serious scientist. He had his degree from Cambridge University, and he also talked about a concept called morphic resonance field. He said that the whole of human consciousness is one field, and there is a possibility if change happens in a few, it may spread to the rest of the mankind. You may listen to some of the dialogues, Krishna Ji and Rupert Sheldrake, or you can look it up on the internet. MRF, morphic resonance field. It's a very interesting study, although very senior scientists who they dismissed all this. They said, no, this is not in the field of science. But Sheldrake said that all these paranormal experiences, telepathy, they should be included in the study of science. Okay, so somehow he says that each individual has to change. When Gandhiji was assassinated, he was giving a talk, and somebody asked him, "Sir, who do you think is responsible for Gandhi's assassination?" And he said, "Each one of you sitting in the audience who divides himself in the name of property, caste, religion, sex, nation, nationality, and so on, is responsible for Gandhiji's assassination." And he also said that I'm
Sir,
not.
your mic. Sir, mic.
He, oh, he also said that I am not responsible, which means he made it very clear that he had stepped out of that common stream of consciousness, which was characterized by all kinds of divisive tendencies, which was characterized by hate, violence, anger, and so on. So that's what we have now. A man who says he has stepped out of the stream of common consciousness is talking to people about change, regards every change that we have experienced or have discussed as superficial, unimportant, insignificant, and who also says that he has undergone a change, is eternally united with truth, with his beloved. And now we are here discussing what he actually means by change. Have we experienced change? Does a man who has just learned to be little more sensitive, has not made thinking, intellectual analysis the center of his existence, has started listening to those he disagrees with, has started looking without judgment? Has he not started his journey towards the radical transformation that Krishna Ji talks about? He says in one place that observation of what is without wanting to change it leads to the transformation of what is. Which means if there are moments when I can observe what I am actually, and not want to do anything about it, which means I observe myself in the silence of that, uh, in the solitude of what is, in the actuality of that thing. Is there any transformation in that observation? That is the question. I will now request Harshad ji to speak a little. Sanjiv ji, if you think at any stage that it's time to show the video, please share the video. Maybe let Harshad ji speak a few words, say something for about change, and then you show the video, and then I'll request Dr. Atul Bhatnagar and you to share your opinions. Right,
Thank you. Yeah,
Sanjiv ji?
sure. Perfect.
Hello. If I want to become an engineer or a doctor, I have to study in a school and then college for about, say, I studied about 21 years in schools and college to receive a PhD degree. And so, and for that, I had to study every day for at least 4 or 5 hours. So the question is, do we really want to change, means transform ourselves? That means to be free from all the problems which humanity is suffering, like fear, anger, jealousy, violence. It seems to me that very, very few people really want to change. They want to become somebody, a very famous, very rich person with power. So there may be only 1 or 2% people in the world who may have this idea of changing oneself. And to change oneself is very, very difficult, because to change ourselves, we have to watch very, very carefully what is happening within us. Like if I want to study science, it is easy because there is that thing, a machine is there, it is an object, and I am a subject. So there is a duality between subject and object in studying science, mathematics, and all history, geography, all that thing. But when we want to study ourselves, we are the object and we are the subject. So there is no duality. So if I want to look at anger, I am also a part of anger, and I am also looking at it. So how do I look at it? And generally what happens that we look at anger through thinking, sometimes justifying, sometimes condemning it. But to see clearly what is anger, what is behind that, one needs something else than thinking. And that thing is, Krishnamurti calls it awareness, which is not awakened in most human beings. And it is not an intellect. It is something higher than intellect, which Krishnamurti calls intelligence, reading between the two lines. That means to see the hidden meaning behind what we read, what we listen. And so Krishnamurti says that it requires freedom to look at oneself if we want to really be free from all the problems. And I did not know about all this thing. My mind used to keep on churning when I was a student in the university, even though I was a good student. But I never really looked at what is this anger, what's behind it, why do I get hurt when somebody says something unpleasant. So I came across a book of Krishnamurti, and he was asking these questions, and he was saying that it's all human beings are going through this problem of fear, anger, jealousy, and what is happening in you, the same thing is happening in whether the person is American or Chinese or Indian. And I was thinking myself of Indian at that time, a Hindu. So I really, through the words of Krishnamurti, I became very, very alert to what was happening within my mind. And I was not thinking about what Krishnamurti was saying. I would read only a page of Krishnamurti, then close the book, don't even think about it. But I was curious to what is happening in my mind, what kind of thoughts. And in that way, I begin to look at myself directly, and Krishnamurti books help me. But this has to be done not through the knowledge which we acquire from Krishnamurti, but we have to really do it. And many people can, Krishnamurti can give talks, but very difficult to be free from jealousy, anger, fear, ambition, all that thing. And like it is possible, as Krishna Ji says, that while listening to him, how we listen, something can change. So, like Buddha, when he gave the first talk after his enlightenment to his 5 friends, and while listening to Buddha, one of his friend, Pandana, he immediately caught what Buddha was saying, and Buddha looked at Pandana and said, Pandana, you have got it. So this kind of thing is also possible. Whereas on the other hand, Devdatta was a very respected monk for many, many years in Buddha's ashram, a monastery. He could also give talk like Buddha, but he was not free from jealousy, from ambition. So it has nothing also to do with many, many years of meditation. And as Krishnaji said, one sannyasi had come who had meditated for 25 years alone in the Himalayas, but he was not free. So how we do this looking, that is very, very important. And if that looking is not free, then whatever we look, it will remain. There will be no transformation. And so I think I will stop here, because the whole thing is how we do anything. How do we listen? How do we look? How do we do eat? Um, so there is something behind it, this without thinking, without any images, looking, listening, and that possibility exists for human beings. And I can say it from my own experience that yes, it is possible to look at a person whom you have known for many, many years and still are looking fresh, whether it is a flower or a tree or a human being. Thank you.
Thank you, Harshad. So, Harshad spoke about the importance of observation, observing without judgment, looking through fresh eyes as though you had never seen that thing or that emotion before. May I now request Dr. Atul Bhatnagar to say a few things, speak for 5 minutes or so about what we have been discussing for the last half an hour. And then Sanjiv can take up from where you leave. Atulji,
Thank
please.
you, Chaitanya. Thank you, everyone. Uh, why I don't change? I will approach this question, which is very pertinent question, in relation to the past 6 months of the COVID-19. When one is in observation of this pandemic, one observes many things that K has reiterated, requested, pointed, suggested in amazingly different ways, pointing to that what we should, or we should rather inquire ourselves, and why we are not inquiring into that. The first thing was that the current crisis was a wake-up call. It jolted us from our normal day-to-day style of living, automated living, machinization, the mechanical way of living. It suddenly stopped all that was going in its way. It may be strife, it may be other concerns, happiness, joy, meeting together, and so many other things. That was number one. Number two, it was widespread, pervasive, all over the world. The current crisis is a widespread thing. It's a pandemic. Third thing, that it brought around panic, fear, and uncertainty to the fore, to the surface. And not a single human may have been spared from these three things. And naturally, as the days passed into first fortnight, first few months, people were very, very alert. They were trying to accumulate knowledge. So that was the response. First response was to accumulate knowledge, thinking that knowledge will free them from uncertainty, from fear, and from chaos, general chaos, and bring them back to their normal life. And there was a deluge of knowledge all over the place. But it did something amazingly different. It did not brought about the change that they had thought about. It brought about a psychological deluge of melodies. It's brought about so much so of disruption in one's psychological world that the governments were forced to change the basic precautions terminology from social distancing to physical distancing. The measures that were told to us were so simple. Anybody could do. And actually in our households, we do that. Of course, we may have not been doing it, but it was nothing new to us. They were simple 4 or 5 measures. But over the period of time, in spite of the unprecedented nature widespread nature of this pandemic, of this current crisis. The humans at large fail to see the danger. And even those simple measures have not been adopted well, are not being adopted. We are still as careless as we were before the pandemic. We are as fierce, we are trying not to feel fear by rejecting fear and not recognizing it that it is fear. It is like playing with the danger. So we have made it a plaything rather than something which can bring around a transformation by understanding fear, by understanding the uncertainty, by understanding that my body, I do not know whether it is immune or not, or how it will react to an infection. We fail to understand this. So what is underlying that? Probably the way we perceive. We hardly have any perception. We perceive in according to our convenience. We saw so much of misery on the media, so much of pain, so much of sorrow. But we are back to our own ways, and the yet pandemic hasn't passed away. We are in the midst of the crisis, yet we have not changed, because we think that we will change something here and there, and we can play with this and tweak a little bit here, there, and we will pass safely away from the danger. So we don't see the change. I don't see change, I don't see the danger, there is no question of a real transformation. Because we think that it will happen someday to me, but not now. And probably I will be lucky enough. I have been a very pious person. I am a very intelligent person. I am a very knowledgeable person. I am a very careful person. So this I is actually the biggest block in perception, in seeing the things as they are. And that's why if there's no perception, one cannot know the danger. And if there's no seeing of the danger, there's no understanding of the danger. And when there's no understanding of the danger, there cannot be a transformation. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. May I now request Sanjiv, as he says, Dr. Atul Bhatnagar pointed out, Sanjiv, that in the physical world, there is a possibility that we see the danger and we change. Of course, the pandemic has changed people, the way it has changed the lifestyle. Is change in lifestyle, can it be considered a change? Change in your approach to things, can it be considered change? Of course, this has changed the way people worked earlier, the way they used to socialize, the way they used to observe uh, festivals and so on. It has changed a lot of things, the way education is imparted in schools and colleges. But these changes are mostly because of the fear of the pandemic. So is change because of fear a real change? And another question, Sanjeev, that I would request you to address is, why is it that we are not able to see, say, anger as a threat? We see change in the physical world, seeing a wild animal or a reptile, venomous snake, and so on. We see the danger immediately. But in psychological world, I don't see the I as a threat, and therefore I don't feel the need for ending it. Yes,
Okay,
Sanjeev.
yeah. Actually, the problem is that it's an ancient problem, time immemorial, this is continued, that if we are not able to see the danger, then we are inactive, we don't do anything. So it is applicable to everything, to our body, to our mind, to our surrounding, wherever. If we are not aware, if we are not able to see, then we will just be where we are. So why we are not able to see? There are several reasons, and I see very interesting thing that because of so much physical security, because of so much physical comfort, because of so much controlled environment and surrounding, we are gradually losing our sensitivity. We are losing our capacity to see, to listen, to observe. So in a way, we are becoming dull day by day just because of physical security, just because of so much comfort, just because of our total disconnection with nature. Because if we are living living with nature, there's an association with nature, then we are alert, then our senses are working, then we are able to listen, to see. But if we are continuously living in an artificially secure environment, which can be a flat, which can be an office or whatever it is, but if we are continuously living in such environment, slowly we will lose all the faculties of our brain. This is the one point. Another thing is that it is a tendency that we just want to delay things. We just want to try some superficial arrangement for everything. If there is a problem, if there is pain in our body, we just take some painkiller and temporary there is no pain and we are just satisfied. We will not see why there is a pain, why body giving signal of pain. We will never think about it. The same is applicable to our mind also. There is an emotion, we are angry, we are sad or whatever it is. We just want some temporary solution. We are so impatient. We want to get rid of it at any rate without seeing the cause, and we always forget if there is a cause, there is an effect. Either we are talking about body or we are talking about mind, and both it is applicable. So where is the key? What is the crux? So I think the only thing which can break through it is, as we have discussed here, number one, observation. Number two, our ability to see, to listen, to feel, and alert and highly efficient senses. These are very essential for even psychological understanding, though they are physical, but they are essential for our psychological understanding also. So keeping our senses alert and observing and not just rushing towards things, just being patient, being slow, and try to understand what is going on. So this is how see I did. Another thing is that when I personally see this question, why I don't change, so I will ask myself why I want to change. What is the motive behind this change? Why I am saying that I don't change and why I want to change. Am I want to change just to be in a state of pleasure so that I am always comfortable? I am always in a state of happiness and nobody will disturb me. Is this my motive behind this? Or I want to change because I want to get something, or I want to become something, or I want to possess something. That's why I want to change. So I think the bigger question is that why I want to change? What is the motive behind change? So if I know that why I want to change, I think from there I can start. If I want to change simply because I want to be in a state where nobody will disturb me, where nobody will hurt me, and I will always enjoy, I will always be in a state of pleasure. So if this is the motive, then I can see how my mind is playing with me, how this I is playing with me. So I think this question is a key is through which I can open the door. It is total, when total transformation will take place or not take place, I think that is not important. Important thing is that how I am dealing with this question. And if I am honest, if I am inquisitive, if I am ready to see this question and I am ready to face the challenge. Actually, it's like an ostrich mentality. If there is a fear, we just close our eyes. So if I am really able to see this, and if I am really courageous enough, and I am able to see it, then change will take place. Because if I am able to see that there is a snake in my room, nobody needs to tell me what to do. I will do whatever is necessary. I will jump out, or I will run out, or whatever I will do. Problem is that I am not able to see the snake in my room. And if I am able to see the snake, I am saying, no, it's not a snake. It's a harmless creature. It will just stay here. So this is the problem. So if I am able to see the danger, I will change. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, thank you, Sanjiv. Very interesting. I don't see the mental snakes, the demons that reside in my mind. And since I don't see them, I don't want them to end. And also, why I want to change is I see that there's a conflict with, say, you, for example, and I want to end that conflict. I want to end my conflict with you. If I'm deeply attached to you, either I blame you, I want you to change yourself, and because I think that if you change yourself, the conflict between you and I will end. If I'm deeply attached to you, I'm even sometimes prepared to work on myself and change myself just in order that our relationship can continue. Now, but the problem is that I just want this particular conflict to end. I don't want a state of mind where conflicts do not arise, which means I don't delve into it sufficiently deeply so as to reach the root cause of all conflicts. I am very selective about what I want to end and what I don't want to end, what I want to continue with. So I think that approach also stops me from changing. I want to have a very good relationship with you since you are a good friend, but maybe I don't want to. I'm happy with, even if I have conflict with Jain Saab, because I just think that it's okay. I can carry on.
Yeah, yes, and you want to maintain this friendship just because maybe there is a possibility that just because you are getting some pleasure out of it, and you just want to continue that pleasure, and you don't want to face the consequences. You don't want to say the unpleasant part of that relationship. So you just want an state where nobody will disturb you. So this is very interesting.
So my approach is not holistic. I don't look at one conflict. Like Krishnaji says in one place that if you love one person completely, you will know what love is. So I think the same is applicable to conflicts also. If I can understand one conflict completely, then I will know the root cause of all conflicts, perhaps. But I don't pay the attention that I pay to, say, one particular conflict. It doesn't have that quality to it. It's very limited. I'm only interested in resolving one small, you know, conflict in my life. So I am just in my corner. I am confined to it. I just look at it. I want to clean it up, but I don't see the whole room. I don't see the whole space. That's one problem. And now, even if I'm honest, now my question is that if I'm really honest and serious, will I be able to see it, or there is something else that one needs to be able to perceive it completely? Because if the perception is not there, if I mistake the if I continue to tell myself that this snake is not a snake, it's just an innocuous creature or a caterpillar, then I will act accordingly. It's only when I see the danger. So I have a habit of explaining things away. If there's a death in the family, say for instance, I don't allow the sorrow to affect me. I don't want to stay with it even for a few minutes, because the whole society is structured in such a way that people will start coming to you, they'll start comforting you, they'll start saying things that, okay, all this is part of life, everybody dies, and so on and so forth. They'll quote from the Gita or some other scriptures. I mean, in some way or the other, I don't want to experience the sting of that experience. And there are people who are also, they see to it that I don't experience. And one way of doing it is through explanations. You explain things away. You say that, okay, I just gave you the example of a death in the family. So the reason why I don't see it with clarity, with intensity, is that because I have got so many intellectual explanations that uh, that dull the senses, that stop me from experiencing it with intensity. This intellectual explanation. Okay, I think we need to stop here. We have 25 minutes left, so I request our other friends to share their insights, what they think about change, what they think, why change is not happening, and we can all now share our views and respond to whatever is raised. Not that these so-called four panelists are responsible for your answers. Anybody can take the questions.
I
Yeah,
want to
thank
ask,
you. Sure,
yes,
sir.
I
Sure.
want to
Please.
ask, my question is to Mr. Harshad Parekh. What is really Krishnamurti means by this change? What is this change we are talking of? Number one. Number two, life really is that much dangerous, which others are pointing out. And is this change really required? Sir, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, okay. uh, what I understand by the change, it means a different quality of the mind, not functioning the way it was functioning before, but some change happens even in the quality of your physical brain, which you can feel, and then you can see that the things which you look at are quite different. You never look like that. So when I was doing this, I was doing research in the electrical engineering at university, and in my office, I was just looking at my own mind, and it was not easy. It's like a snakes moving inside. Now, most people find it very difficult to be alone and silent and looking. And when they look inward, they see these snakes inside. So they get frightened, and then they involve in some other activities so that they don't come in touch with their own mind. So I really experienced like the snakes moving inside, but I was not frightened. I was still curious. So what I feel that within ourselves there is a great treasure is buried inside us, and around it there are snakes. And when we try to look inside, we see these snakes and we get frightened and move away. Then we can never touch this treasure which is buried within us. And many people, I'm sure, they have come in touch with this treasure, and that's why Mirabai said, Ram Ratan Dhan Payo, Kharche na Pute, Chor na Lute, Din Din Badat Savayo. So there is a treasure which is buried within us, which we have to, once we get it, then we don't need to do anything. We are not interested in the treasure which there is outside, gold and diamond. And that is why Kabir said, Tere paas heere moti, mere man mandir mein jyoti, kaun hua dhanwan. So there is some within us, but we are frightened to look within us. And when there is some change happens within us, we will know it. Nobody will have to tell us. And if somebody says it is all illusion, it will not disturb you because you know what it is. So that is what I mean by change. A change happens in the quality of the brain itself. And Krishnamurti calls it mutation of the brain cells. So there is something, and even in our traditional philosophy, there is something like that, the energy going from the base of the spine, going to the brain and transforming the brain, and then a different way of looking, listening happens.
Is it only the
Thank
ending
you.
of
Thank
me,
you.
as others are saying?
Wagmare sir, Wagmare sir, would you please allow Savita ji to ask her question?
Sir, I
We
will
will be,
also.
we will be
Okay.
requesting sir to remain with us. Savita ji, please.
Okay, thank you, Shri Kumarji. I just wanted to add one thing that in all these conventions and seminars that I attend, I realized the main thing that Krishna ji kept telling us again and again was slow down. Watch the arising of thoughts and the images being created. Stop there. The highest gap that he talked about, where the actual awakening and awareness of which will happen, that will bring us to the source of what is it, with no justifications, no reasoning, nothing but what is the truth. So if we can stop ourselves right there in that gap, then the awakening happens. And that is where everything will happen. So thank you.
Thank you. Is
May
it
I-
a
Why do you
question?
Murthy, sir? Why do you Murthy? After Chaitanya Nagar.
No, I mean, I'm just asking Savita ji if it's a question because I think the slowing down doesn't.
Please go.
Slowing
Please go ahead.
down.
I am
Sir.
in love with you, sir. You know that.
Thank you so much. Savita ji,
Yeah.
I think the slowing down may not happen if we turn it into a practice
Yes.
or if we turn it into a goal.
No.
I agree with you that slowing
It has
down.
to be a process, ongoing, ever going.
Please let me complete,
Yes,
ma'am.
sorry, sir.
I think the slowing down can happen only in an indirect way, which means when I see that too many thoughts or too much thinking is not necessary. Excessive thinking is not needed. Not only that it is not needed, it is also detrimental to my inner harmony. Then indirectly a slowing down may happen. Otherwise,
Yes.
if I turn it into a goal and start
Yeah.
practicing or start cultivating that slowing down through meditation or through other techniques, it may not happen. It is
Yes.
only when I see the limitation of too much thinking, when I see the futility of unnecessary excessive thinking, then unconsciously the mind may slow down. That's
Yes,
all.
sir.
That's all I wanted to say.
Yes,
Thank
sir,
you.
I agree with you totally because if I जैसे इच्छा रहित होना ही एक इच्छा बन जाती है, so it becomes self-destructive and self-defeating. I agree with you, Chaitanya sir. Thank you.
Sir, may I come in?
Yeah.
Yes,
Please.
sir, please.
Please. Go ahead, sir.
Please. Thank you very much. My question is addressed to Nagar sir. Nagar sir, I have some thing to seek clarification for. There are two things. One is truth, which I have been confusing. Of late, I have changed from the other previous question. So I would like to just have a clarification from you. My voice is audible to you, sir? Am I audible?
Yes, it is audible, yes.
So there are two things. One is truth, which is the real thing. And what is? Is it, to my understanding, I thought Krishna Ji has given a new term to what is. Whatever it is there, in our perception, that is what is. So that is truth. But lately I have begun to understand that, I was mistaken. what is probably the perception of truth by a individual mind which is conditioned. So what is the conditioned perception of truth? So is it correct or what is that? So just please clarify me what truth is and how they are different and what is number one. And so this about this change, why I don't change, sir? Is this question not from a motive behind it? So instead of why do I not change, don't we have to understand what motive is? That's true. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know whether we can talk about the ultimate truth, but when we watch what is, which is my actual state from moment to moment, I may be watching something which is not. I may I may be watching something, sir. Oh, somebody is talking. When I watch what is from moment to moment, I may be watching something which is totally fictitious, totally illusory. Say, for instance, if you are a liberated person, for you, anger is a result of ignorance, right? I am angry because I am ignorant, because I don't see the whole truth, right? But the moment when I start watching anger as anger, there is truth in seeing the faults also. This is how I understand it. So what is, for me, what is all this? What is my uh, process of becoming, my anger, my jealousy, and also flashes of affection, love, and so on. Now, watching, there is truth in watching all this as they are, okay,
Yes.
at one level. So we are not actually even discussing what is the ultimate truth. We are only
True.
discussing our
Hello.
ability to watch our own actuality as it
Hello.
presents itself from moment to moment.
Ask a question.
So
So it means
seeing the falseness of what is also part of that search after truth.
very true. So it means what is now? I just want to just repeat and make it clear to myself that what is a individual perception of actuality or reality, which is a conditioned perception. So
Mm.
what is for me? I am everybody is observing. I am also observing the whole every environment around me, everything around me. So my perception, because that is distorted by my opinions and all that, which is the content of my mind, which is conditioning. So what is a conditioned perception, not the truth, but watching it without any avoidance is actually seeing the truth.
Yes.
That will enable
Yeah.
us to see the whole truth. And holistic will be when the entire what has gone through us
Yes.
before our.
Even seeing the illusions, like
Yes,
for
yes,
you, as I said, you are a liberated person. For you, anger may be an illusion.
Ji.
For you, ambition may be an illusion. But for me, for a person who is ambitious, it's a solid reality.
So that
So
is
you
a
can't. Yes.
conditioned
So,
perception.
yes. But for him, it's true. People hallucinate. They actually see people in the room. They hear voices which are not there. But for them, it's real. They actually are
Yes,
affected by all this. So
yes,
if they go to a psychiatrist, he won't say that, no, 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 they don't exist. He has to look at that illusion as their truth for that moment. They see, for them, it's true. That illusion, our illusions are our truth. There are levels of reality. Level of reality, what I perceive at this moment is my reality, and if I perceive it without any distortion, there is truth in that perception.
yes. And so about the change, this change is a eternal, happening which is going on. My involvement in it is my life. The change that is going on, it, nothing is static. It's all in a flux. It's change, and there is reality. There is truth, but there's no, disharmony in that. What is happening in the entire cosmos is a constantly changing. It's not static. So
Mm.
my involvement in change, which is eternal, which is actually there taking place, my involvement in that has a motive because I am very limited. My perception is very limited. So I want to, modify the change that is going on there. So that has a motive because I am a limited entity. I want to preserve myself. secure myself. So I want to bring modification of change in the change, which is eternally going on. Is it so, sir?
Yes, yes, of course, of course. It seems that there is order as long as I don't interfere. But
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
have a habit of wanting to operate on what I see. The
Okay.
same thing applies to my inner milieu. I see something arising. I want to work on it. I want to change it.
Yeah.
I wish it were different. So that I, which is always in the process of becoming something other than what it actually is what stops me from changing. But that's the nature of the I.
Yeah.
It doesn't want to face itself. It doesn't
And,
want to look at itself.
yeah. And as you rightly said in the beginning, that that change is actually dissolution of the I.
And the I doesn't want to enter into an inquiry which may lead to its own demise, which may lead
Yeah.
to its own dissolution. And therefore, all these intellectual inquiries that we may be doing, actually doesn't lead, because I think there is a very stubborn tendency in the me, in the I, which cannot entertain this kind of inquiry. Because why should I be interested in an
I
inquiry
don't,
that will lead to its own death? So we can use it for our entertainment. But seriously, one doesn't want to go into it. As I said, that I may want to end my conflict with you only. But if you tell me to end all conflicts, I may be a bit reluctant to do it. Because I get pleasure out of a lot of conflicts that I have.
As a pleasure, and I'm
Please allow someone else to ask the question, sir. Thank you, sir. Please.
Verma ji.
I think Vaidi Murthy ji wanted to ask some question.
Atul ji, please take that question.
Which one?
The next question.
Hello, what was the question?
Please go ahead, sir. Vaidi Murthy Saab. Please go ahead. Verma ji, somebody has a question. Please ask your question.
Me?
Yeah, please, sir. Please
Okay.
go ahead.
For me, my questions are very basic, not to a particular speaker or anyone. These are very basic questions. They may appear to be very naive also, because but the word change has always a reference point according to me. And the talk started very beautifully with that the I is the main problem. Whereas what has been talked about, or what we can or we do think using our mind, I is very much there. Even if when we talk about senses, I is very much. All our senses strengthen I. So none of this to me is, because transformation too, without any feeling of I, then from to change. Then Dr. Bhatnagar talked about danger. Danger to whom? I. Then we always talk about greed, envy, anger, compassion, comparison, these 4 or 5 things, as if this is the whole psychology of man. It is not, to me, it is much, much more vast. It is vast. And that's why everything that has been talked about, the mind has been used, the I has been used, the motive has been used, the motive and without motive, imagination has been used. So that's why probably when we took up this, why don't we change or I change? All my problems, I deal with individual problems. They are solved. They are solved. It's not that entire transformation has happened. Individual peaks come, and then you be with that, try to understand that, then these two get resolved. That is there. So, but total transformation is without I, when cognition is also not there, that I doesn't know that I have been transformed, in all these things beautiful to listen to. But my questions are still, these basic questions are cropping up time and again when I listen to all these talks.
There is a, there are two, there
At
is
least
another
Varmaji,
way.
you are not last one to ask.
Varmaji,
Always
there,
you were last one, so you are last but one. Thank you very much for this progress.
Thank you.
Please,
Varmaji,
Chaitanya ji, go ahead.
yes, I agree with you. I agree with you that I is very assertive. It's very clever also. It's like a cockroach. It can hide anywhere in a fridge or in you know, that's true. But there is an awareness of the eye. As you said, that you see eye everywhere. Now, that is what is important. We seeing that movement of eye, whether gross or subtle, in every activity that I perform, not only in jealousy and anger, but also in love. Now, seeing the presence of I, its stubborn presence in every sphere of life, that awareness is also there in the consciousness. If it was just the I, then it would be completely a hopeless, dismal situation. But there is more to this than to our consciousness, it seems to me, than just the eye poking its nose everywhere. So there is an awareness which you yourself mentioned, that you see this eye, its presence everywhere. That seeing the perception of this ego manifesting, asserting itself in every walk of life, in every activity, that is what is important. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
If time is left,
Hello.
Krishnamurti, you wanted to ask a question, Mr. Maheshwari?
Yes, yes.
You please go ahead. After that, if possible, I request Nagar sir, please don't keep Krishnamurti waiting. The video should be played so that Krishnamurti may also tell something to us, and then we will finish it. Okay, this is the last question. Always Krishnamurti leaves waiting.
When we use the words change, it seems that it is already that we are dissatisfied with the present situation, and we want to change. We want to solve the problem of anger, violence, fear, jealousy, etc., etc. So we have some imagination to free from them, and already we are condemning them. So how we can see without condemning and change? Sanjiv ji, please.
Sanjiv,
If you...
Interesting question. Actually, just seeing this is interesting, is an interesting thing. That we want to change, and we want to change because there is a certain motive behind it. And what is the motive? Motive is that I want to be in a state of pleasure. I want to be in a state where nobody is disturbing me. I want to be in a state where everything is going on fine. So in a way, it is merely a desire of my present I or mind, whatever word we may use, to be in a state. It is just this change is similarly as doing so many other things. We are watching television, we are eating something, we are going somewhere, we are traveling, everything we are doing for same purpose, just to be in a state of pleasure, just to be in a state where nobody is disturbing us. Again, this change we are using for it, because we face anger, we face the consequences of our own anger. So we are not interested in finding out the solution, that why it is happening. There is no curiosity. There is only somehow management, that I must get rid of it so that I can live comfortably. So if I think as a child, as a mind which is fresh, which is anew, if we really want to know the things, not because we just want to end, not because we just want to get rid of it, but just out of curiosity, and it is human, it is faculty of our brain to be curious. We are not using that faculty, that is a different thing. But there is a capacity. In every child there's capacities there. When we grow old, we just finish that. we just kill that curiosity. But there is a curiosity. Why this is happening? Why there is anger? Why there is pain? So if we are able to ignite this faculty of our brain, I think something new can take place.
Sir, would you please start video?
Just a
So
second.
let us finish it.
Just a second. I just want to request Sanjiv, show that short video. Don't end it abruptly. We just sit for a few seconds quietly after the video ends, and then leave the meeting without any other statement. Watch the video, sit quietly for a few seconds, and then please disperse. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody.
This is a lovely question, the next one. Why do we not change? Yes, sir. I was going to ask that question myself. I see people here whom I have known for many years coming year after year, and I've asked them too, why do we not change? What will make us change? You ask this question yourself. What is the energy, drive, the intensity that will make us change? Change. What do you mean by that word change? Change from this to that, right? That is preconceived. Therefore, it's no change at all. I wonder if you see this. Do you see this? If I change according to some pattern which I have carefully established, it is not change. It's a continuation of what is modified, which I hope will lead me further and further modifications. But it's the same chain, right? The same movement. So, what do we mean by change? To the speaker, it means the ending, not continuation of what is modified. Take, for instance, physical revolution. The communists, the Leninists, the Trotskyites change. Their idea of revolution is to change the whole structure of society, the outward environment, hoping thereby to bring about a different human being. That is, the outside pressure of change from the Tsar to the communist, Bolshevik and so on will ultimately, or as soon as possible, make man different. So they have not succeeded, on the contrary, they have done terrible things. So we are talking about change in psychologically. Change completely the content of our consciousness. Right? Not change consciousness into a better consciousness. to a more polished consciousness, less violent, but occasionally violent, and so on and so on. The ending of the content of consciousness is radical change, radical mutation. I won't use the word change there. So, why don't we change, move away from this totally? You have made the question clear. Why, after millions and millions of years, we human beings have reduced ourselves to the present appalling condition? It is appalling, frightening. The violence, the brutality, the killing of for a piece of land. God's sake. Why? And the question is, why don't we bring about ending to all this? Please answer this. They're all educated, workers, intelligent certain direction, making money, going to work and all the rest of it. But you haven't solved the real issue. Why? Will outside pressure change you, to bring about a mutation of the psyche? Mutation means total change. That which has been is not. Not change to something. That which has been, that is, my anger, my violence, my stupidity, my holding on to some idiotic illusion, some symbol which perhaps will save me from something or other. What will make us change? Outside pressure, obviously, has not done it. Right? That's very clear. Is that clear to you? By changing society, you're not going to be changed. Because you have created the society. Is that clear? We have made this society what it is. Wars, killing each other for some national prestige, honor, or a piece of land. Do you understand what I mean? And after all thousands of years, we are not free from fear. What will make us change? More knowledge about yourself, more knowledge of the world outside of us, knowledge that we must not kill and we kill. We have accumulated thousands of years of knowledge which has helped us to kill people. And also we have knowledge that we shouldn't kill. Where does it lead us? So, will suffering, pain, attachment, pressure, the carrot, reward and punishment, you follow? Will all that change us? Apparently it hasn't. So what will make us change? What, not change, what will make us transform? What will make us end this terrible confusion, sorrow, pain, anxiety, loneliness, all that end. Tears, we have cried enough. Sorrow, nothing outside. I wonder if we realize that. No gods, no saviors, no external force, agency is ever going to change us. We are much too clever for all that. Much too cunning. I think this is a very serious question one should ask oneself. Will time bring about this mutation? We have had time, million years, obviously. Time will not. So nothing outside will change us, will bring about mutation. What will change us is only our own attention, our own awareness of the confusion in which we live, and watching that, remaining with that completely, not trying to change it, not trying to do something about it. You'd send it. Very interesting. We reject, if we do, outside agency altogether. Gods and all. Rejecting, any intelligent man does reject it. But he doesn't reject the operator inside. You understand? The actor who says, I will do this. That actor is the past memory, past remembrance, past knowledge. That, if that could be completely transformed, then you observe what is completely freely. And when you observe so totally with complete attention, that which has completely ended. So it must be one's own perception of one's misery, confusion, and live with it, hold it, not try to act upon it.
Please close it.
Okay.
Thank
you
you
to
very
all.
much, okay, sir. No
Okay.
words to express the great. Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nagar sir, waiting for someone?
नागर जैन साहब, नागर सर ने बोला था कुछ समय साइलेंस में बैठना चाहते हो, ऐसा कुछ उस समय बोला था उन्होंने।
ओके ओके।
आप उनसे पूछ लीजिए क्या कुछ बोल रहे हैं।
ओके।
आज बंद नहीं करना है क्या?
साइलेंस में बैठे हुए हैं अभी।
आपके लिए साइलेंस तो बहुत दूर की बात है यार जैन साहब। चैतन्य नागर सर दिख नहीं रहे मुझे। जैन साहब चैतन्य नागर ही शायद लीव कर गए, शायद ऐसा लगता है मेरे को।
ओके चल तो क्लोज करो ना। टोके सर प्लीज
close
क्लोज
करना।
इट। टोके सर प्लीज क्लोज इट। टोके सर भी चले गए क्या?
वो भी चले गए तो कौन क्लोज? अरे वो भी चले गए, कौन क्लोज करेगा?
हाँ हो जाएगा क्लोज, तुम चिंता मत करो। तुमको और उसको क्या नाम है मोडक को जवाबदारी दे तो रहा हूँ कि सीखो इसको, तो मेरे को ऐसे ही बता रहे हो अभी नहीं सीखेंगे, अभी ये प्रॉब्लम है, अभी वो प्रॉब्लम है।